Hello and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be talking about Louis L'Amour's Rivers West. I know it's not a Western, but I feel like I haven't talked about a Western on here for a hot minute. Louis L'Amour, of course, is a famous Western writer. This book does take place a little before the Wild West period of time. I mean, people are using muskets and stuff like that, so it's not really a traditional Western tale. Also, the main protagonist is like a French-Canadian settler who is traveling down into different parts of America to, like, I think as far west as they've gone at this point is like Ohio, they talk about in the book. But anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself. It says, Rivers West. His dream was to build magnificent steamboats to ply the rivers of the American frontier, but when Jean Taylor began his journey westward, he stumbled upon a deadly conspiracy involving a young woman's search to find her missing brother, and a ruthless band of renegades led by the brazen Baron Tourville. The makeshift army of opportunists is plotting a violent takeover of the Louisiana Territory. Jean swears to find a way to stop this daring plan. If he doesn't, it will not only put an end to all his dreams, it'll change the course of history and destroy the promise of the American frontier. So yeah, he kind of stumbles across this plot, basically completely by accident when he is heading down the river to go to the place where he's going to make these steamboats, or at least try to get a job working on steamboats. And comes across a dying English officer who gives him a sealed letter that instructs him to, like, hey, you need to take to this place. Baron Tourville and some of his goons find him and try to give the letter up, and essentially, he stops them and gets caught up in this massive plot of intrigue, where Baron Tourville is gonna, I guess, try to set himself up as king of the Louisiana Territory. It just got super sunny here, so I am completely sorry that I think my whole background's just essentially gone white. But yeah, no, I like this book. It definitely isn't my favorite Louis L'Amour book by far. I don't mind his books that don't deal 100% with the American frontier and the Wild West. I mean, he is known for that, but I mean, he also wrote action-adventure books. He wrote mysteries. I mean, he dabbled in a whole lot of different genres. This would probably, I guess, kind of historical, like more like historical fiction or alternative history. Once again, I'm not a historian. I don't know if there was ever a plot by some random person to capture the Louisiana Territory and make it their own little kingdom. But yeah, one of the things I really didn't like about this, and this happens sometimes in a lot of his books, is basically the protagonist is almost a bit of a know-it-all to the point where it's super annoying. Even the parts that are supposed to be, like where he's going to be in danger and he might lose, you never really feel that John is really essentially facing anything he can't handle. I mean, he knows like some weird stick martial arts. He knows multiple languages. He knows all sorts of different like boating techniques and just a whole bunch of stuff for a settler to know, especially one who I think the protagonist might only be 17 in this book. He's either 17 or just turned 18. He's pretty young, leaving home and setting off on his own. And yeah, I mean, even his interactions with adults, he's immediately seen as like, oh, well, this guy knows everything and he's up to snuff. This does happen in a lot of Louis L'Amour's books. Sometimes the protagonists can come off that way, but usually they're up against more formidable enemies, and they're also definitely up against worse odds. At no point do you really get the sense that he's not going to stop Baron Tourville. And there's also the fact that Baron Torval's supposed to have an army, and at no point does Jean have an army. He is just, I'm gonna fight this guy hand to hand, and people will know that I won, and they'll stop this plot. Usually armies have second in commands, so you would think if there was this massive plot to take over Louisiana and Torval was stopped, that someone else would step up to accomplish this plot. Jean has a lot of plot armor, essentially, and a lot of things definitely happen that it just feels too lucky. He constantly is running across people that know about the letter and secretly know how to help him. There's this massive web of spies, including the love interest who is trying to find her brother, who is very much kind of almost like a Mary Sue character. At times, she's kind of given her own ambitions and goals, but at the other points, for the most part, she's just waiting around for Jean-Luc, which isn't usually a staple of his writing. Louis L'Amour has written a lot of pretty strong female protagonists, though he definitely has disdain for ones that come from the East, which is shown in his Wild West books and also kind of shown in this, as they are more society focused, as he puts it. So it was kind of weird to have in here, especially when you think of the fact that the period of time this book is taking place in, the West really isn't settled at all. So basically people are living in it's the colonies. People are in the East. That's where most of the people are. And when they're talking about the West and stuff in this book, they're talking about Missouri and Ohio. They're not even talking about the far West. So I thought it was kind of odd to focus characters that way. Other than that, I guess my only other real gripe about this book was the fact that it honestly felt too short. It ends at, let's see. Yeah, it's under 200 pages. I think it ends at 180. And, usually that's a perfect length for a Louis L'Amour book. He's kind of said everything he's needed to say. They're short, they're snappy, and there's a lot of action packed into those, 180 to 200 pages. But this time, it just kind of felt like, we didn't really dig into this plot or why there was a network of spies. And it almost felt like this could be the beginning of a series at times that just never really went anywhere, though. We were kind of introduced to oh, this is a thing that everyone seems to be aware of, but Jean's gonna blow past that because he wants to go build boats. So yeah, it was kind of weird. It definitely felt like it was trying to be maybe a little too much. It didn't know really if it wanted to be an action adventure book or a frontier book or an espionage book. So, there's a lot of espionage going on. And I don't, like I said, it was kind of weird because I do read a lot of Louis L'Amour books and usually I love them. So it was kind of weird to kind of find one that I really didn't like that much. It wasn't bad. It, tied everything in a neat bow at the end, but there was just a lot of places I felt he could have gone differently with this book, especially expanding on the espionage focus and maybe doing some more background and just kind of making the story a little more interesting and fleshing out the characters a little more so that we care about them, because the journey is so short that half the characters Jean comes into contact with, it's hard to care about them or be upset when one of them dies or leaves. And even with the love interest, he only meets her a number of times before he's like, yep, that's it, that's true love. And then, yeah, even this, the climactic battle between him and Baron Torval felt very rushed and just a little too neat. So yeah, if you're reading Louis L'Amour for the first time, I definitely wouldn't recommend checking out this book. Check out some of the Sackett books. Check out Taggart's good. Hondo for sure. There's so many other, I think, books that are good entry points into Lulu Moore books. If you haven't read this book and you do like some of his more like historical fiction set on the early frontier, then, you know, give this book a shot. Maybe it just wasn't for me. I mean, that's usually the case with a lot of books, and that they're not bad. I just wasn't the target audience for this. And who knows, this could have even been aimed at younger readers at the point when it came out. You know, I picked this up in a thrift store, so I wasn't around really during the time where it was setting on, you know, shelves and stuff for sale. So who knows, you know, really, I don't know what aisle this would have been in and who the target audience was when they were marketing it. Because if this is a book that was meant for younger readers, then 110% it definitely probably hit all the marks. YA fiction is, I mean, filled with protagonists that are too smart for their own good and can kind of do everything. And, you know, they're aiming at teenagers and kids that want to be that for themselves, right? They want that kind of self-confidence. So if that was the target market, then I just wasn't it at this point in my life, and that could also be it. But like I do say, he does have an issue with some protagonists just kind of being a little much, especially considering the time period that a lot of them are set in. So I don't know. Like I said, this book just wasn't for me. I didn't hate it, but it definitely isn't my favorite Lulu Moore book by far. If you did like Rivers West, or also didn't like it, and know of some other books by Lulu Moore, even other Western writers, because I am still on the lookout for other Western writers in general, please let me know in the comments below. And as always, if you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe, and I will see you guys next time.